just been measuring the distance between this mount and this mount. Seems to be exactly 275, but I've measured the width of the block itself at 275, so I think that means I've got them in the right spot. They're at the right angle. Rear AC lines are out. Done some bashing of the firewall with a hammer. Don't really know if it's enough. I probably need more clearance down here, so. Engine mounts are pretty much done. I've rounded this side off. It was still rough cut before. Put some paint on there. Welds are all good. I think, you know, don't know a lot about welding, but I'm pretty sure, you know, the penetration and everything is all good. So hopefully the engine doesn't fall out on the road. That would be nice. Sump is off again. It occurs to me I probably shouldn't have put so much effort into putting the gasket and sealant and everything on the first time around, but that's okay. Sump is off because it fouls on the drag link there, right at the end of my finger. And so what I'm going to need to do is shave off that section there, kind of thing, make it much shorter towards the rear. We extended the oil pickup tube just by sleeving it with a larger diameter tube over the top and then welding it in place both ends. Just welding back on the original brackets that retain the brake line. I had to cut them off. As expected, the turbo wastegate actuator sticks out ridiculously far and fouls on everything really, so probably the turbo is going to foul as well on the steering there. So someone mentioned to me that people flip the manifold and have it high mounted. I don't know if it's going to be too high, but I might have to do it nonetheless. For now I might just take the turbo and manifold off, or just the turbo even, and get the engine in for now, and then sort that out once it's mounted. If you're wondering how to get an engine that sort of weighs this much on a basic hoist like this with no leveler or anything else, mated up to a gearbox that is also not mounted to anything, it's not really a straight answer. Just kind of hang it roughly where it needs to go, and then use a combination of a jack on the gearbox that's literally just sitting on that and that, and the gearbox needed to rotate, so instead of putting the jack in the middle, I put it on the driver's side and lifted it up, and then I was kind of just able to sort of maneuver the engine around. As you can see, it's just hanging until I was able to get this one bolt in. If I raise this jack, so to jack the gearbox up on that side, you'll see those two line up quite easily now. So once we've got that first bolt in, it gets to be fairly straightforward from there. actually can't remember if I filmed it, but I've bashed the firewall back there with the hammer and given myself a bit more clearance, which appears to have worked pretty well. Sort of didn't really do a lot of measuring, I kind of winged it, just from the word go, bashed it out as much as I could, and there seems to have been enough. Dropping bolts. Engine is in. Oh, this is a happy moment. Oh yeah. She's in on her own mounts. Oh, I'm happy. I'm a happy man. Okay, so the air conditioner from the Dodge was mounted way down here and would foul on the chassis rail, so instead I'm running with one of these brackets which holds the aircon compressor and the alternator up much higher out of the way. So I need to put that on there. I had to cut that off as well. Which was the original alternator mount pivot point bolt thing. There's the top heater hose connection, so I'll get rid of that little bit of hose and put something else on. This here will be the bottom one. Normally there's some pipes that go along there to the back, don't have them, so just use hose I guess, or some straight pipe. I'm just piecing this adapter kit together. Alternator with a new pulley, which is off my old ZD30 is on. That has a bracket up here, and that obviously bolts through the aircon compressor. This little bracket down here holds a tensioner, which is the original Dodge tensioner. And then there's a new idler which goes up here and bolts onto the top of the original fan pulley hub, fan hub. So it's going to go there like that. The thermostat has arrived, so I can quickly nip the housing off and replace that. If I can remove it. Mint. I don't know if that's the intended location for the positive bleed to come out of the alternator, but that's where it is. So to make this terminal come out the back like that, I really just hit it with a hammer until the plastic casing came off, then bent that tab 90 degrees, which prevent that from touching the housing, I'll thread this bit of fuel hose around there. Here we go, that's the positive pin that I've modified, and this is the factory plug, which thankfully is the same on a TB45 loom as it is on a ZD30 alternator. It seems to be quite low profile. I think that will work. I'm going to have to remove it when there's an aircon compressor here, but that'll do. One thing I didn't realise is that there's no tacho sensor, crank angle sensor. If you're lucky, you'll get a sensor depending on what you got your engine out of. I think mine actually had one out of a Dodge, so I think they come with one, but it didn't have the sensor on it when I got it. And I've just bought a new harmonic balancer because the other one is shagged, and not realised that it doesn't have the notches machined in it for that sensor. So even if I buy the sensor, I'd have to get something done to the balancer in order to have a tacho. So if you're using a conversion box, like an adapter for your tacho, most of them support the input from one of your alternator stators. So this is the ZD30 alternator. I've taken the back cover off, which is there. And you can see that the pins that connect to the stator, there's 4 of them. I've just soldered a wire to one of those. They're already a soldered connection, so all you need to do is tin this bit of wire and solder it on, and then feed that wire through one of the covers, holes in the cover. That's what I'm doing for a tacho. I don't know that it will work. I don't know that I've picked the right wire. If it doesn't work, I'll switch to one of these other ones. I'll just pick one at random. We'll see how it goes. Alright, I added this wire to the alternator. I haven't put a connector on yet, so I'll do that. I'll just use a short bit of cable here. So this is the fan and hub off the TB45, and this is the Dodge fan hub here, this original on the motor. And you know, aside from the bolt pattern is different, I actually think that will work. I mean, looking down from the top, you can see the bottom radiator support holes there. I think there's actually going to be clearance to have this. There's guys selling sort of custom fan hubs with custom bits and pieces and all sorts of stuff to make it work. I think this will work. I just need to re-drill these holes and probably shave some of that threaded knob on the end there off, just so it sits all the way on flush. Just position that on top of here as accurately as I could, and use some black spray paint to mark where the holes and stuff are. So I needed longer screws to get through this and into that, and they wouldn't fit between the plates, so I had to cut the sides of the screw holes out. It's not really ideal, but it is what it is. There goes one of them. Look, if this doesn't work, well, I just won't show it. If it does work, well, la-di-da. Man. Dude, that is just the best possible outcome. I don't know how well this is really going to work, but it's mad. Should go without saying that this boost actuator sticks out all the way down here is going to be too long. I might attempt to modify this, just shorten the bracket and the arm and everything as much as I can. All that work turned out to be really worth it because the actuator has a hole in it. Turbo fits quite well in that low mount position, and that's where I'd like it to stay. We'll see how we go with that, but obviously that actuator wouldn't fit on there, and you can probably see down there the bracket, just at the end of my finger there, is where the actuator has to mount. So I think there is clearance, as long as the actuator is, you know, low profile. So I've ordered another one. We'll see how when it gets here what it's like as to whether it fits. I've put this position select switch on the gearbox. Doesn't leave a whole lot of clearance for the shifter, but I guess I'll have to make that work. Well, that was super duper difficult to weld. underneath the car up above, over the gearbox. I managed to get one little tack actually in the right place, and it's to not melt the plastic on the shifter too much. Captive studs and a custom bracket. Get a load of that, Project Binky. Right, shifter complete. That's all the way forward in two-wheel drive. That's four-wheel drive high, and then you push down and go rearwards for four-wheel drive low. But as you can see, the gearbox being mounted too far back is preventing that from ever happening. And four-wheel drive shifter completed. They're all perfect. That's the good one, I'll show you that one. Just doing up the bolts that hold the flex plate onto the torque converter. Fun job. Bye. So I'm running a vacuum line for the brake booster. This is the original line that came off the engine. That has a check valve in it. So I'm going to put this check valve in line with the hose that goes across the firewall, so the vacuum pump is down here. So there's the check valve teed in with the supply to the diff lock, and then going across to the brake booster. I'm just deciding what I'm going to do with the battery. Biggest problem I had was to put it far enough over to clear this intake. I'd have to cut the wheel arch here where it raises up, because otherwise the battery would be too high. It'd shut the bottom of the terminal and start a fire. And then I looked at the coolant overflow bottle where it goes, and even right up against it, it's still fouling on the intake. So this just isn't the spot for the battery. I can probably have it forward a bit, maybe something like that. But then yeah, towards the front here, it's sitting up quite high. Especially once I put a tray under it and level it and stuff. I think the terminals are going to be too high up for it to be this far forward, so I don't have a lot of choice. I want the airbox there, and I don't know how big it's going to be, so I can't put a battery in there and commit to it. I have to think about where the receiver drive for the aircon is going to go. It's going in that cylindrical thing there, so can't really go back here. There's not enough space, and I'm not going to move the ABS unit. I don't want it near the turbo, so I think I'll put this down the back of the car. I mean, it seems to make the most sense, and I don't see any negatives to doing it. I've got heavy enough cable. It's going to go down to the back of the car, and I'll put the battery in the boot. Right, so for a total of 75mm squared of copper wire, I have this 50, actually I think it's 55mm squared wire, and I have this additional 25mm squared wire, both going to the body. That's for the ground. For 12 volts, I have the same thing on the positive side as well. So I have the big lead, which is 55, and another 25mm squared wire. So that should handle plenty of current for the starter motor. They all come to this little junction box down here. Which the starter and the fuse box both connect to. That has a nice little lid, which is up here. Covers that up like that, nice and neat. Transfer case loom complete. Belt is on. I've also just started the engine as well, and alternator is charging. Just taking the dashboard apart. I'm going to take the whole dashboard out, I think. That's going to let me find a spot to mount the CompuShift and tidy up some existing wiring and install some gadgets while I'm at it. On the TB, the throttle position sensor was on the throttle body, and the throttle body, the pedal itself is just mechanical, just a cable, nothing else. The 6BT is the same, it's also a cable, but I also need a position sensor for the gearbox. So that is the old engine loom. Cut the plugs off it for the position sensor. This is a ZD30 pedal. So now I have plugs that suit that. I've used pieces off the TB45 pedal to add a cable spot there. The cable comes out really close to the firewall. There's no extra length in it, so had to come down quite close, but you can see that works pretty well. Just fitted the dipstick tube for the transmission. That was a fun job. This is my custom trans fluid refilling funnel. Works very well. Got my drive shafts back. The rear one has been shortened by 65mm. The front one has been retubed and lengthened by 65mm. We'll see how that goes, whether I got the figures and measurements correct. Handbrake cable. Oh. For now I'm going to drive it very briefly forward and then very briefly backward and make sure it all seems to work okay, and put it back in the garage. I'm mainly moving it forward because the exhaust that I cut off with Anthony is trapped up the back. I need to pull it out the back, but of course I got a wall there, so this will let me take the exhaust off, get that out of the way, and then I can start looking at the fuel tanks. Alright, I have an O-ring that seems to go there. Float would appear to go that way, because there's a flat bit there and there. That is a huge tank. I assume that was aluminium too. That's steel. So that is really heavy and really tall, and I actually don't know if I want to put that back in. It sticks down from the underbody quite a lot. I'll think about it. So I'm just taking this out to check which of the wires on this loom here are for the fuel pump specifically. I'm going to use the pump to pump out the petrol that's in the bottom of the tank. Pump on. This is the new 1/2-inch hose I've run all the way to the tank. It's just temporarily there at the moment. I'll put brackets and some heat sleeving, because this is the side the exhaust will go on, to protect it. Just going to hook it up. These are the original power steering lines for the TB45. Now I've been to NZ and got them to put a AN6 fitting on there. High pressure line is in. We used original brackets on the chassis there. The low pressure line is also in, but I don't like this setup with the aluminium line. It's kind of got too many bends in it, so I'm just going to replace that with hose. You'll also note that I haven't got a cooler in at the moment. I've wired the return straight back into the pump. Now the power steering pump on the 6BT that came with it is rooted. There's a bunch of seals on it that all leak power steering fluid, so I can't seem to find a rebuild kit. So rather than buying a whole new one for at least hundreds of dollars, I already had this spare. This is an electric power steering pump off a Holden Astra. Initially when I was doing my research for the project, people were saying use one of these, but those people didn't buy a Dodge engine which came with the power steering pump on it, so I didn't end up needing this. But now, because I have it, I'm going to use it. It takes the same fittings, an M16 by 1.5 standard power steering O-ring thread. I've got a 90-degree AN fitting. I think this is an AN6. I did have to bend the hell out of these to get them to fit. Kind of butchered them a little bit, but that's alright. I didn't break them, I didn't leak them, and they clear everything, so that's good. And we'll see if it works. Works perfect. It's quite super simple to wire these up. That's constant 12 volts, just straight to the battery, probably with a fuse. This one's ground. I've just grounded down there with a ring terminal. One of these is a diagnostic wire, the brown one, which you don't need, and the other two just connect to 12 volts. Now if you delay the blue and white wire till second after this one's connected, so this is your ignition on, if you delay this one, the pump will spin up instantly. You can just connect them both to 12 volts and it will go. So, easy.
I said, oh Lord Jesus, it's a fire.
She soots quite bad. I think I might have to check the timing. I still have a leaky injector hose here, but I'm just going to take it for a quick test drive and see how it goes. That brakes. Yep, some power steering. Okay, GoPro died again, which was great, but it drove really nicely. Throttle cable works really well. The gearbox seemed fine. It's stuck in third because I have no computer on it, so I could manually downshift through 3, 2, 1 if I had the right shifter to do that, but I don't, so it's stuck in drive, which with no electronics connected is just, I think, third gear or even fourth gear, whatever it is for this gearbox. So stuck in third, so no torque, but yeah, reverse and everything works. I've got an injector to fix, so I'm going to rebuild all of the injectors. I have new nozzles for them and some other goodies, so I'll do that and do some wiring. The engine's in, it runs, it drives. and now it's just finishing off details. Then I could look at putting the radiators in, the coolers, and getting this project close to completion. So stay tuned, guys. Thank you.